Hi, everyone. Happy Venus Day. Happy Friday. It is Friday while I'm doing this recording, which is the day of Venus. Okay, so let's talk about Venus's position and what's happening with her in the sky. So I'm going to mix systems a little bit, tropical and Babylonian sidereal. There's a few things to consider here. I guess the first thing to bring to people's mind, of course, is, well, what houses does Venus rule in your birth chart? Obviously, those houses are going to be more highlighted than the other houses because they are the houses of Venus in your own birth chart. Also, if you have an ascendant or midheaven that's ruled by Venus, then that suggests that this is a even more favorable time for those of you that have those signs on those angles. Also, Venus is now visible, as I've mentioned a couple of times already. This is an extremely favorable time for Venusian things and for particularly Venus Aphrodite, the goddess of love, because Venus transitioned out of her morning star phase, went into the underworld for about 100 days, and was reborn as the evening star. So we're in that phase at the moment. That phase is in full bloom as we speak because Venus is visible in the sky. Also, the other thing to take into account here is the Venus star point, which occurred on the 4th of June, which was in Gemini. So this is a Gemini evening star. Now, Venus's visibility is a very important matter to always be aware of and to understand that when she is visible, that is when she brings the blessings and the gifts that she has to give us. And it's also the gifts and blessings that she herself has integrated, really, because of the 100-day journey she went through in the underworld where she had to die, basically. So all that work that we did during that time on ourselves, which was a very difficult passage, it always is. That's the longer period of invisibility for Venus, and that period is said to be, associated to grief or loss or death or pain or unhappiness, difficult times. It's not an easy time, but we do go through it, frequently. So it's not like it's a revelational phenomena. We have an opportunity to go through this period every time she goes invisible for about 100 days. In any case, as I was saying, she is visible and she is the evening star. So if you look at your western horizon, wherever you're located, as she's moving further and further away from the sun, she will be visible in the sky for longer periods of time. This will happen pretty much every day. She increases her separation from the sun, so she moves further away from the sun. So the sun will start to set, way before her as the time progresses. This is going to happen over the next basically 8-9 months. So this journey of her in the evening sky, we can see Venus every evening just as the sun sets. And this will be the case until March next year, where she will then disappear again. But that's for a shorter period of time, and that's another chapter, and we'll talk about that at a later stage. For the moment, the good news is that she's visible. She is Aphrodite, the love goddess. So the intensity of the morning star, which we had over the last 9 months, and then her period of invisibility, which is not the most pleasant time and can be very unlucky in matters of love and things like that, we've passed that now. We're through that. So moving forward, here we are with Venus in Leo, tropical zodiac. And so just before she entered Leo, which was just, a few hours ago, relative to Friday, being Friday for me here in the Southern Hemisphere, when she was on the 29th degree of Cancer, she formed a trine to Neptune. So that was just a passage of a day, one day. But that still can be included in the bigger picture, which I'll explain one part at a time. Now, this is, as I said, this is tropical Leo. So in sidereal Babylonian, she's just entered Cancer. And in tropical, we've already had the experience of her being in Cancer. I think it's absolutely worth paying attention to both. And it's not a question of choosing one or the other. You can integrate both. It just takes a bit of time and a bit of practice and a bit of understanding. It's not easy to do, but if you want to learn it, you can. So before I talk about Venus in Leo forming an opposition to Pluto, let's just go back to the fact that she is visible as the love goddess Aphrodite, which is supposed to represent a much more positive time in the world overall, generally speaking, for everybody around matters of love and romance and relationships and money as well, because Venus does correspond to the material world. Although, given that she's an evening star, the evening star is not so much about the earthly material plane. She's an evening star. It corresponds to the night. She's the nocturnal goddess. So it is very much about love and romance, but it is also about the deeper wisdoms that we can integrate through this process of Venus being the star in the evening sky. She's furthest away from us, right, when she's an evening star. So metaphorically or symbolically speaking, I mean, it's a literal phenomena, astronomically speaking, that she's furthest away from us. And then on a symbolic level, we can translate that into she's closer to spirit, to source, to star energy, to the deeper wisdoms that belong to the mysteries of the night. That's one way of thinking about it, right? So she can bring that wisdom into our experience as we experience Venus as an evening star for the next 8-9 months. So if we look at her as being in sidereal Babylonian Cancer, then, for the next few weeks, she will be, because she's in her evening star and visible, she will be very favorable in matters of family and home and land and things of that nature. Venus in Taurus rules land anyway, but Venus in Cancer is very much about home, your physical home, your family, your loved ones, and things like that. And because she's visible, she's bringing the blessings to us around those themes. And I want to see how this is going to unfold, because as I've mentioned recently, I have to move from where I am, and now it's become 100% crystal clear, which is really, really interesting, because the time that Venus was invisible, it was a possibility that I had to move, but the person who owns this property wasn't being completely transparent or clear or direct with me. How's that for Venus in the underworld, right? Not knowing where I stand. It was an uncertain, uncomfortable time. There was a lot of anxiety because I didn't really know what he wanted to do, because he's just unfortunately not one of those direct people. And as soon as Venus became visible, which was just in the last week or so, first of all, did you guys feel the energy, the shift of that energy? I certainly felt it within myself and felt it in my environment everywhere I went, even just down to my local coffee shop. There's a local flower shop that I visit, and there's this gorgeous Taurus guy that works there who adores Venus, and every time I go in there, we talk about Venus, and he himself, even though he doesn't understand the full complexity of Venus's invisibility and her cycles and so forth, he's really tuned into that energy in his own way. And he said to me, because I started saying, you know, Venus is visible now. You can see her in the evening sky. And he's like, I felt something so different in the air. You know, I just felt that shift. So we all tune into these things, you know, whether we understand astrology or not, whether we're working with astrology or not, you know, because understanding the language of astrology is a way of identifying, you know, what is actually going on or what you are seeing. But even though many people don't understand the language of astrology, they are still part and parcel of the energy. They are still experiencing it. They may just not have the language to, you know, identify and articulate what's going on, but they will articulate it in their own way, with their own language, with their own feelings. And if you understand astrology, then it's your job to identify through what they're saying, what they are talking about astrologically, right? So anyway, as soon as Venus became visible, my astrological content, workload, etc., it just went on another level. Things started to really open up again in a very positive way. You know, it's been a real blessing since Venus became visible. And also with the person who owns my apartment, it wasn't until Venus became visible, believe it or not, that things became clear about where I stand. And that is that he is selling and I definitely have to move. And that all transpired with Venus's visibility. And I spoke so much about Venus's invisibility, you know, on so many levels, and did speak to things like, you know, it's hard to know which way to go. It's hard to get things moving. It's hard to progress forward in things. It's a darker time. It doesn't really bring a lot of happiness and joy in our life. It's a time to go deep within and actually, you know, transform, basically transmute, release. You know, it's Venus in the underworld, right? Inanna going through the 7 gates, relinquishing a garment of her body through every single gate, which is a psychological, spiritual, you know, symbolic metaphor for us stripping ourselves of things that we are ready to shed. And so now we've been through all of that, and we are here with Venus visible, blessing us in sidereal zodiac with the Cancerian features, which have to do with home and family. So I'm hoping that I'm going to find a home in the next 2 months, because I absolutely have to. And I've got a lot of faith, especially while Venus is now visible. And Venus does rule my whole sign 4th house, because I've got Taurus on whole sign in my chart, right, in my whole sign chart. And in my quadrant chart, I've got Libra in the midheaven. So Venus is blessing me in both departments here. She's blessing me with my home, and it is a blessing, even though it's not nice knowing I have to move. This has never felt like a home to me. There are many reasons for that, which I won't bother explaining. But it's, you know, it's important for me to just explain a little bit, and that is to say this has never felt like a home for me. So even though knowing that I have to move, you know, the journey ahead of me it's challenging. You know, it's not an easy time. There's lots of different complexities going on with property and the market and, you know, all this craziness. But Venus is visible. She does rule my 4th whole sign house. She does rule my midheaven in my quadrant chart. So those are all very encouraging signs for Venus for me. And I share this with you because you may relate to this. You may have a chart with those signs on those angles. You may be going through something similar. That's why I'm sharing some personal information. Okay, so in terms of tropical zodiac, here she is in Leo, and she's just come out of a trine to Neptune, which of course can be a beautiful experience, a beautiful window of feeling some bliss type of energy. It could be in romance, it could be in your art and craft and artistry and, you know, all things Venus, of course. But with Neptune, even though this is a trine, and a trine aspect is always in nature, it's supportive and it flows. It's an energy that's harmonious. But we are talking about Neptune, and I've often said, you know, with Neptune, it doesn't matter how intelligent one believes they are or how wise one believes they are. Neptune can trip us up. You know, I've seen Neptune trip up people who you never would have thought that they would be so blindsided in a particular situation. You know, I've just finished Neptune on my Venus 5 times, right? So I'm really speaking from firsthand experience as well. You know, I went through some massive periods of disillusionment with certain individuals around me, and the disappointment that hit, because that's what happens with Neptune. It's when the energy moves on, the reality of the situation is revealed. So the ideal that you saw is now, you know, just blown out of the water, and you can see very clearly what's in front of you, for better or for worse. And it's usually for worse, because when I say for worse, I mean it's usually a disappointment, because with Neptune we always project the ideal onto a person or a situation, and that can just be seeing the best in a person, like, you know, projecting. Basically, when we project Neptune, you're projecting God energy onto a person or a situation. And in our physical form, in this physical reality, nothing is one and whole and perfect, if you like, as divinity is, as the divine source creation is. And even the divine source creation, well, that's a whole other conversation. But from an evolutionary level, there's an understanding that source itself is also seeking to expand its own consciousness, and thus it, you know, creates these little sparks of consciousness, which is us, and experiences itself. That's a whole other conversation. I don't want to get too lost in that. But I guess I just want to say, even though this is a small sort of passage, the Venus trine Neptune, it could be related to a backstory where you've been idealizing someone or something, and then the Venus trine Neptune, when Venus was in Cancer just a day before, really accentuates that to the maximum. And then a day later, Venus goes into Leo, and she forms, her first aspect is a opposition to Pluto. And it's tricky because the opposition to Pluto can be, well, it can be it can be lots of things actually, but I'm only going to speak to a couple of themes. One theme that is possible is that what we worked on in the last 100 days internally within ourselves, from that Venus in the underworld perspective, which is shedding all the old, relinquishing and removing things that we have outgrown, recognizing where we further need to grow, you know, all those sorts of things, right? So now that Venus forms this opposition to Pluto, what can happen is we can see in a very deep, complex and intense way part of that process as well. Because when Venus is invisible and we are going through that underworld journey, there's a lot of sorting through, there's a lot of processing, there's a lot of assimilating, there's a lot of releasing, there's so much going on. And so it's not like we are 100% clear during that process. With some things we might be, but with a lot of it we won't be. And so with this Pluto forming an opposition to Venus now, Pluto can bring up from the underworld, right? Perhaps aspects of that journey that we went through, and all things that maybe we further still need to work on, because Pluto tends to bring things up that are hidden, because it rules the underworld. Hades, who is the Greek name for Pluto, and I just taught a class on Pluto a week or so ago. So if you want access to that, just let me know. Send me an email. I've got 2 full complete courses going at the moment. Send me an email if you're interested in those. If you want to have a personalized reading on Venus, on anything at all, send me an email. Let me know. Hades in Greek means unseen. That's what it literally means. So when Pluto comes up in a theme, in a story, in a pattern, which it is here with Venus, it brings what was unseen to the seen, right? To our ability now to see. And that is further enhanced by the fact that this is an opposition, because an opposition always speaks to illumination, awareness. That is the most powerful and greatest gift that an opposition creates for us every time. It doesn't matter what planets it is, it doesn't matter what signs they're in, every polarity brings in the gift of awareness. Whether we, whether we can tune into that, whether we can see that or not, that's another story. Depends on the person, depends on the details, depends on what's going on, etc., etc. But is the opportunity there for that gift and that blessing to be bestowed upon us? Indeed it is. And Venus, of course, rules gifts. So Venus starts her journey in tropical Leo, in a very intense way. She picks up an opposition to Pluto. Things now can become seen. That's one level, which, as I said, could correspond to that 3-month journey where she was invisible. It could be partners, lovers, friends from the past that come back again, circle back to you. It could also even be clients and things like that. Don't just limit Venus to love and romance and relationships, as in intimate relationships, because Venus is the relationship principle, period. And we have relationships on numerous levels, both personally and professionally. So it can be old clients reappearing, it can be friends, it can be lovers, it can be, members of family, it can be absolutely anyone coming back. Now, that coming back is going to be very significant if it does show up, because there's something that needs to be seen about that connection, that alliance, that relationship that could not be seen previously. And we have to be true to our heart here. Venus is in Leo, tropical Leo. Now, Venus in Leo, by the way, in Babylonian astrology is considered a secondary exaltation. Venus is exalted in the sign of Pisces. In Babylonian astrology, when she's in Leo, that's one of her most dignified positions, because the lion is one of her primary animals. That is in Babylonian astrology. So we're talking about Ishtar, basically. So Venus in Leo is a highly dignified position. Now, in a personality, mundane, unconscious level, it can be, Venus in Leo can be the complete narcissist. There's different levels, different expressions, different manifestations, different levels of consciousness. But in a more healthy way, let's say, and then through the tropical zodiac, as we are projecting Venus through the tropical zodiac in Leo for the next few weeks, we are being called by Venus as the evening star to really be aligned with our heart center, Leo. And we start that journey with an opposition to Pluto. And Pluto is a no BS energy. It's a no nonsense, no BS. Don't stuff around with Pluto. Now, if this energy manifests in someone's life who is in a complex relationship or re-meets with a partner from the past where there was turbulence and things like that going on, or you meet somebody at this time, any of those three scenarios, if the individual acts with this Pluto through that lens of Pluto, which is the more, let's say, unconscious level, which connects to manipulation, jealousy, control, you know, all that Scorpio Pluto stuff that's overtakes people, becomes an obsession and things like that, then you can imagine what this Venus in Leo journey will bring up for people. It's not going to be the most pleasant journey, right? So this is up to us to be, you know, honest and aware and really come from our heart, Venus in Leo, because her journey through Leo is she's going to be carrying that Pluto energy with her all the way through, because that's the first aspect she picks up. So it is about being really aligned with our soul energy, Pluto, coming from our heart, honoring our heart, and honoring other people's heart as well. I think, you know, that's important too. And also, you know, on a lighter note, you know, Venus in Leo is so much fun. She's so playful, you know, Leo is the sign of play and expression, self-expression. So it is a beautiful, vibrant energy that brings us to life, brings us to our heart center, where we can actually have some fun as well, you know. And in the mix of that, we've got Venus as an evening star in the night sky, and that has to be considered as a backdrop of this story. So it's Venus embodying the heart flame energy, fire, Leo energy, and she's going to catch up to Vesta, which is the hearth and the flame as well, right? Being real about our relationships, seeing with X-ray eyes, Pluto, Scorpio. And also her evening star phase, it's not in the background, but I'll just use that expression. Let's just say that's in the background. Because she's visible, it's a much more positive time for Venus matters in the world and in our lives. And as I said, as an evening star, she really is associated to love, romance, and deep mystical teachings and wisdom. So she's bringing that to us in this process while she's in Leo. So she's having a bit of fun, if you like, but she's still actually very attuned and connected to the deeper, more mystical side of herself, if you like, and in a very intense way through the opposition to Pluto. So the other thing is, if you meet somebody at this time, Venus opposite Pluto, I think, you know, it can be the most intense, you know, the most intense feelings can rise very, very quickly, like within seconds of just meeting somebody. That would be a Venus Pluto energy, 100%. I've got Venus Pluto in my natal chart, so I live that. I live that pretty much all the time. But yeah, if you meet somebody at this time, it could be like a really, you know, a soul intense, really, really, really strong energy and connection. But it might be, it might have some really complex undertones and roots to it as well, you know. So you've got to be really, you've got to have your wits about yourself with this energy, you know, because Pluto can, the more unconscious we are, the more these energies can feel like they are overtaking us, you know. And so you can attract somebody in that's not available, for instance. You know, maybe they're married, maybe they've got another partner or whatever, but there's this incredible, undeniable sort of connection that the both of you feel, but you can't realistically, you can't act on it because of the circumstances that are there. You know, these are all possibilities, you know. But in terms of our own individual self, because there'll be many people, you know, that are just single, for example, I'm one of those people. This Venus-Pluto opposition, I think, is a very powerful window to show us how much we grew through that underworld journey. You know, what did we really relinquish? What did we really release? And what else can we actually clean up as well? So those are the main themes with Venus in Leo. And as I said, you know, Venus is visible, so that's a very powerful time for Venusian matters. Venus in tropical Leo, that's an exalted position, so she's very dignified there. But the opposition to Pluto brings in a twist, and it can be both, for lack of a better words, it can be both positive and negative. It just depends on our individual situation. But ultimately, whatever happens with Pluto, it is always about a process of growth. You know, Pluto will reveal something to us and in a lot of cases take it away from us because Pluto has to rebirth whatever it touches. So when we go through some type of transformation or some type of letting go of something, it's a death, isn't it? It's always a death with Pluto. But with a death, there is always a rebirth. You can't separate those two things. One follows the other, always. But, you know, when there is a death, an ending of some kind, it can be an excruciating experience. It depends what it is, you know. Death, whether it's in the literal sense or in a metaphorical sense, is always a painful passage. There's no evading the pain of death in whichever form it shows up. And it's just part of our human existence that's inevitable on multiple levels, on multiple occasions throughout our entire life. Okay, so let's see, what else have I got? They're the main things, except actually I just did want to point to on the where is it? Two things. So 22nd of July, and this is a big deal actually, and it's wonderful. Like it's one of those, you know, it's one of those transits or one of those passages where, you know, you just have some luck really just comes your way, you know, some really good energy. It could be like a really good friend. It could be something great with your love life, something really great happens in your relationship or in your art and craft Venus, or just, you know, the things that you love, something really beautiful, you know, comes to you and it comes with grace and ease. And what I'm talking about is this Venus, as she progresses forward, when she gets to 11 of, well, you know, technically, I mean, I'd, you know, start it from around about here even, maybe even before that. Yeah, from about the 17th of July. She's forming a sextile to Jupiter. Okay, and so that's going to be in play for a few days until there it is, sort of exact more or less, 12 degrees Venus in Leo, 12 degrees Jupiter in Gemini. That's called a sextile. They are 60 degrees apart. You can't have a more fortuitous, fruitful, beautiful, flowing, beneficial, blessed, giving, abundant, lucky energy than Venus sextile Jupiter. They are the two benefics, benevolent energies. In this case, Venus is in her secondary exaltation in Leo, tropical zodiac. She's visible in the sky. She's the evening star, so she's less conflicting, if you like, because the morning star, she's, you know, she's she's not conflicting within herself. She's conflicting in matters of the earth, in terms she'll bring up conflict. She's the goddess of war, right? Anyway, she's not that now. She's been through that underworld death passage. So we don't have to worry about that for the next 8 months at least. So she's visible, she's in Leo, she's happy, and she forms that gorgeous sextile to Jupiter. So those few days, really note those dates in your calendar and pay attention to those days relative to Venus, Jupiter things. And of course, where that aspect is happening in your birth chart and the houses that Venus rules in your birth chart, right? You could, that just could be just one thing, however big or small it is, that could just be a really beautiful omen and gift and blessing from the two benefics, right? That's that. And also a couple of days later, you can see that Venus joins up with Vesta. So those are two female divinities. Vesta is a very complex goddess. But I like this synergy together, especially Venus is the evening star, connected more to the mystical, and Vesta is very much connected to the mystical. She represents aspects of our soul, and she represents what we really devote ourselves to. So this is a real heartfelt devotional energy. Now, this could be in relationships, and this can be in multiple relationships, as in, you know, different types of relationships. It doesn't have to just be sexual, romantic. It absolutely can be that. And or investments as well, because Vesta is the goddess that corresponds to what we invest ourselves in, primarily our soul, but it can also speak to material investments as well. And the other layer, of course, is that they're both in Leo. So this is a deep investment from our heart center that's really important to us and holds tremendous value, Venus. So that too is a beautiful window, once again, really offering us some great opportunity and blessings. Okay, let me see if there was anything else. There are some other aspects that Venus will pick up sort of later in August, I think it is. Yeah, later in August. She's going to pick up a square to Uranus. She's going to form a trine to Chiron. And she will form a quincunx to Neptune, actually. And a couple of days after this, she forms a quincunx to Saturn. So there are a few other aspects to consider, which I'm not going to go into those now. I may come back and just do a quick 10-minute, 15-minute just for those aspects, but because they are important. But I think that the most important ones here really are the things that I spoke about. Visibility, Venus, visible evening star, Gemini, Venus star point. That energy is fully blooming at the moment. And by the way, the Gemini evening star, because now Venus is visible as well, she is favoring, actually, you could say, the air quality, right? Which is the 3 air signs, and especially Gemini, of course. So if you've got those air signs in strong positions in your chart, we all have them in our chart. You may have personal planets there. You may have an angle, particularly ascendant, midheaven, descendant, IC are very important as well. The angles of the chart are the strongest points in the chart, always. And that is the case whether you're working with evolutionary, Hellenistic, traditional, medieval, Babylonian. There's no argument there, and there's no difference of opinion or difference of thought or difference of teachings. The 4 angles of the birth chart, ascendant, descendant, midheaven, IC, which is also known as the cross of matter, are the strongest points in the chart. And it is worth considering your Babylonian ascendant and your tropical ascendant. Both will have something to say. Both are very important, and that goes the same with the rest of the angles in the chart. So yeah, as I was saying, her visibility, her dignified position in Leo, her opposition to Pluto, And she favors very much the air signs as she's going through her Gemini evening star phase as well. So there's lots of good things to feel more encouraged about. You know, the energy is already shifted in the air. There's a greater sense of happiness, a tone of happiness overall, you know, in the energy, in the ether on the planet. Of course, we all have our own complexities and personal stories where we may be going through, you know, very specific hardships in different ways. We it's not like Venus being visible will completely wipe that out and just, you know, move it out of your path. We all still have things to work on and work through regardless, but it is a much more blessed and peaceful and happier time when Venus is visible overall. Even if we are going through a difficult passage, she will help, she will assist. Just, you know, be aware of which houses she rules in your birth chart, because those houses will benefit the most. Okay, I'm going to sign off, and I'll see you guys for the what are we having? It's a full moon again in Capricorn, isn't it? Second full moon in Capricorn. It'll be on the 29th degree, I believe, which is next weekend. And I will come back and talk about that. Yeah, it's quite interesting actually. All right, guys, sending you loads of Venus blessings as it is Friday today. Bought some beautiful, luscious pink roses. Cheer up my space and just tune into that beautiful Venus energy. See you soon. Much love, and reach out if you want to study with me. As I said, I have a couple of courses available. You can buy the classes in singular ways, readings, you know, it's all there open for you. See you soon. Much love.